Thousands of people turned out at the Sydney Opera House for Bob Hawke's big day. They included former Prime Minister Gough Whitlam, sporting and entertainment personalities and members of the Federal Caucus. Bill Hayden was greeted with a standing ovation. Thousands outside listened to the campaign launch through loudspeakers.
The next Prime Minister of Australia, Bob Hawke.
Mr Hawke entered accompanied by his wife, Hazel, who took a seat alongside the opposition leader's father, the Reverend Clem Hawke. Then, the moment Bob Hawke has waited all his life for, the chance to take Labor to power and become Prime Minister. And he began with a plea for unity.
My fellow Australians, today we set out together on a task much greater than winning an election. The task is to win the future for Australia and all Australians.
In looking to the future, Mr Hawke resurrected one of the most controversial issues of the past, a universal health scheme. It would be called Medicare and would be financed by a 1% levy on taxable incomes. More immediately, he promises to cut petrol prices by about 3 cents a litre by repealing the latest oil parity price rise. There would be tax cuts for nearly 6 million low and middle income earners. People earning $5,000 or less would pay no tax at all. Pensioners could earn even more without losing their entitlement, and Mr Hawke promised to increase pensions to 25% of the average male weekly wage within 3 years. He also moved to defuse 2 potentially damaging issues, state aid and the fears of a capital gains tax.
And here, let me make one point so that even our opponents can understand it. There will be no new capital gains tax.
On state aid, Mr Hawke announced funding increases for both government and non-government schools, a $24 million program to provide computers for both government and private schools, and he declared that 98% of children in the Catholic education system would be better off. On industrial relations, Mr Hawke continues to stake his campaign on a prices and incomes policy, claiming it already has the widespread support of both unions and industry. Mr Hawke has already put the cost of Labor's program at $2,750 million and says it will increase the current deficit by about $1,500 million. It was that point that Malcolm Fraser seized on when asked for his reaction to the Hawke speech.
Mr Whitlam increased expenditure by 46% in one of his years. I'm told it's Mr Hawke's ambition to try and exceed that particular record. Well, if that ever happened, it would be doing something that would be enormously damaging again to Australia and all Australian families.
Back at the Opera House, the mood appeared to be one of complete adulation for Bob Hawke. There was an emotional moment as Mr Hawke's father joined him on stage. Clem Hawke turns 85 on the day his son hopes to become Prime Minister. They left together, mobbed by the thousands of people outside who'd helped to provide the spectacle that Labor Party organisers were hoping for. John Mangos on the Bob Hawke campaign in Sydney.
Channel 9 will televise Mr Hawke's election speech at 10:30 tonight. Prime Minister Fraser is also in Sydney campaigning tonight in the important marginal seat of Phillip in the eastern suburbs. His strategy there will be to criticise the cost of Mr Hawke's promises and contrast that with the Liberal policy he announced in Melbourne last night.
Melbourne's Malvern Town Hall was packed with the Liberal Party faithful for last night's campaign opening. It was used as a launching platform for Mr Fraser's landslide victory in 1977. But unlike previous campaigns, Mr Fraser this time opted for a low-key approach, emphasising the need for moderation in government spending. The programmes he went on to announce will cost $567 million, but increase the current deficit by only $19 million. He'll tackle unemployment by creating 10,000 new jobs in the armed forces for short-term volunteers. An extra $50 million will go to youth unemployment schemes. There's a 5% tax cut for small businesses, and more money for childcare to create 150 new projects. As expected, Mr Fraser made the wage pause and industrial relations a centrepiece of his policy, launching an attack on union militancy. To combat industrial unrest, Mr Fraser proposes 2 referendums, seeking federal government power to outlaw strikes in essential services, compulsory secret ballots for union elections and strikes in key areas, and the return of the Arbitration Commission's powers to enforce its own awards. Bob Hawke watched last night's Prime Ministerial address in a Sydney TV studio. He wasn't impressed.
He is now saying, I want to run on my record, and that suits me fine. because there's not a worse record in the history of federal politics.
With last night behind him, Mr Fraser took his campaign on the road, appropriately to the Sydney vehicle transmission factory, where the 300 employees took a 5% wage cut to keep going after the original American owners pulled out. When it came to meeting the man who's calling for tougher union controls, there was obvious coolness. As she's done so often before, Tammy moved in to break the ice.
Excuse me. Can I say hello? Tammy Fraser.
The issues are clearer, the contrast is sharper. Malcolm Fraser's restraint versus Bob Hawke's undoubtedly attractive promises guarantee a much harder edge to campaign 83 from here on in. Peter Harvey with the Prime Minister in Sydney.
And the High Court is expected to hand down its decision tomorrow on the move by 4 New South Wales residents to have the federal electoral rolls reopened. The case went ahead today, with the 4 claiming that too many people had insufficient time to enrol after the federal election was announced.